Derek Mason, middle of St Helier. Nice sunny day, bit of a buzz today. But something's going wrong with architecture in Jersey. What's the problem? Major plans getting refused. Why are major plans getting refused?
I think there's too many people involved now in the process. You know, when I first started off in architecture in Jersey, early 70s, like I did this building up here, Bhutan's. I was a real architect. My office was 50 yards away. I had that commission, I drew it, I designed it, I got it approved, I did the details, and I was on site every day, and that's really true architecture. Now that process, you can't do that process anymore. As soon as you've got the job, you've got to kind of, every step of the way, somebody wants a design statement or a pre-planning application. It's bollocks, you know. I know what I want, just let me get on with it.
The professional standards with architects, they're all trained architects, by definition is a trained process. It is strange, it is odd that other people are allowed to interfere with the process.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the integrity of the architect be the word? I mean, shouldn't it be like that? The architect says, this is your design.
Yeah. If you're strong enough and good enough and patient enough, you do get there. You can. You've got to be able to take criticism and understand where that criticism's coming from and what kind of level it's coming at. You know, as a building inspector or whatever, thank you very much, interesting, we're taking a cover. But if it's a leading architectural writer or particularly another architect, you do listen very carefully. But I think the island's got the best crop of architects. We had to see their exhibition at the AJA recently that we've had over the last 50 years. They do face problems, and in fact the process now is so long, it's so complicated, people kind of give up, you know. The Masri's, they kind of gave up. The Co-op now, they've appeared to be giving up, and that shouldn't be so. There should be if the process has got to be a beginning and there's got to be an end.
Why is there this obsession with prettiness on buildings? I discussed it with the planning minister the other day, and he was saying, well, what's wrong with ugliness? And I was tend to agree. I mean, obviously not everybody agrees what is a pretty building, but why are we obsessed with making buildings pretty?
It comes with territory, doesn't it? It comes with a street that's got familiar, well-loved buildings in it. Most people naturally want that to stay. They don't like the newcomer, the brash newcomer, the look, I'm the part of the new century. They naturally are a bit averse to that, and that's wrong. They've got to let a new building be designed, be built, and take its place in the queue. You know,
we don't exercise similar control over motor cars, wagons, aeroplanes, boats that come in, and most of those are pretty well designed, aren't they?
Yeah, you just mentioned things that move, Michael, things that move past you and around you. Buildings stay with you. They are there all the time. They're the backdrop to our lives.
Well, the people who design, like they were talking about the ferry boats on the radio this morning. I mean, they're pretty big undertakings. They are buildings at sea, aren't they?
They are, but as I say, they're transient. They move, and you know, buildings don't move. We are trying to fashion a collection of buildings, and most importantly, the spaces between buildings. I think Andrew Skate bumped into doing Architecture Week. Okay.
The building that's on the front of the JEP today, if it's approved, will be quite a major building on the. I think you can see it there.
I heard the 8 o'clock news this morning. Heard a lawyer from Save Jersey ranting and raving, and I was full of trepidation as to what I was going to see this afternoon in the paper, but I'm extremely pleasantly surprised. I think this has got makings of a seriously great building, one that it's got to go through the system, it's got to be built, then we can judge it. You've got Solm in charge of this, American Architects, probably the best firm of architects in the world at the moment. I know one of their recent schemes was the one in Dubai, the tallest tower in Dubai. So these are skilled, seasoned professionals, and you've got to let them have a go, and this is fantastic.
You mentioned it was an advocate who was leading the discussion this morning.
Yes.
I mean, will presumably architects don't criticise advocates for their work?
Exactly. It goes further than that, Michael. The advocate Christian, can't mention his name, but it's Christopher Schofield, and he's a good friend. He's a good guy, and I always have to listen to him. And he has a point of view, and I respect that. But he's not an architect. He's not actually designing the building. Where you've got so many constraints that you wouldn't normally get out of bed to design a building in, say, Jersey these days. You're aware of the weight of expectation and opposition, and you kind of deal with that, you know.
Well, as I well know, first of all, you've got to satisfy your client if you design the building.
Yeah.
Then you submit it to the planning authority to let their thoughts. Every Tom, Dick and Harry is invited to comment on it because it's advertised and comments are invited. Yeah. Every lobby group, action group in the island or wherever is invited to make comments.
But your National Trust and Serve Jersey, all the rest of them, it's a negative from the word go. They'll refuse anything. You know, every application that goes in kind of got a 21st century kind of look about it, gets an automatic there's something wrong with these people, you know.
Just opposite this site, which is in the paper today, is a site that you did some years ago, which we gave you a bit of stick for, but not for the aesthetics, but for the function. And I must say it's the function of buildings which is obsesses me a bit. Function dictates form in my way.
Yeah, I think you were talking about La Frégate, and I've always thought it was a successful building. It was always meant to be a destination building. It's one that you arrived at, and it's proved to be extremely popular as a start point for all the walks and the races. It was unfortunate, I think, for everybody that the first floor, which we designed, the intermediate floor, never happened. Issue with the disabled lobby. Anyway, but that is part of the game that you play, you know. But eventually, it's a great place. They now got a license down there. You can have a dinner party down there, and I'm proud of it. You know, I'm very proud of it.
The waterfront generally,
one day it'll be a listed building.
Yeah, I feel sure it will. The waterfront generally isn't a particularly great place for architecture.
No.
Do you think the buildings work functionally, any of them?
You have to go back to the competition process, and when Andrews Downey won it, that was almost like the beginning of the end, really, because the three people in the last trio were Conrad Roche, BDP, and Andrews Downey, and out of those three, the constraint came from the planning minister at the time, the late great John Laswell, wonderful man, but he insisted that the grid, the cross grid, road grid, must be implemented. BDP said no to that, Conrad Roche said no, Andrews Downey said yes. So Andrews Downey kind of got the job, and the rest is history, because the crisscross road remains with us as a problem. How do we cross the road? Do we tunnel it? All could have been avoided by letting the architect design the road system, not the other way around. You don't design the housing scheme, the layout, after the road's in. You design the roads after you've got the rest of it.
Strange enough, I was in Bristol just a few weeks ago.
Disaster.
And I was looking at I just happened to be there the day of at Clifton Suspension Bridge, when there was hot air balloons flying over it, and the whole architectural planning impact of that area was wonderful. The atmosphere was wonderful. There were thousands of people sitting around really enjoying it. It was all free of cost, or somebody would say. But it was a delight. You know, the buildings there were sort of vaguely Italian style, overlooking the gorge. Somebody had designed everything that was there. But nevertheless, it worked. It really worked. It is possible, isn't it?
Well, Richard Rondell recently had this vision for closing Broad Street for 2 days, and there was a street party, and it was fantastic. I came out of my office in Library Place, and I thought, I'm in France, you know, this is really truly something special. But because all the bylaws and all the rest of it, they had to clear up, dismantle on a Saturday night and re-erect on a Sunday. Just couldn't believe it. Here we are, Michael, in Broad Street. What on earth are these cars doing up and down here? What are they doing here?
Yeah, it's the fate. I did a blog on the fate because it was an exceptional atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it was a shame it had to disappear, as you say.
Should be permanent. All right, give yourself access for the shops and all the rest of it, specified times. But I'm probably the only architect in Jersey who's worked under all of the 6 island plans. The first one was 1966 and was called the Barrett Plan. Everybody thought, oh, it's a Jersey mind away, but it wasn't. It was Sir William Holford's plan. And one of the chaps in the office happened to have a name, Barrett. And for whatever reason it became known as the Barrett Plan. But it was brilliant. You could get that plan out. And pedestrianisation, it had clear areas. It's a great plan. Since then, you know, look at the 2011 Island Plan. Big, thick volume of you can't do this, you can't do that. Excuse me, there's not a town plan in there. There's not an idea in there.
No.
You know?
Well, what frustrates me about those plans is that they've got further and further away from solving the housing problem, which is such a relatively simple thing to solve, I would have thought. But
1988. I haven't read an island plan since, not seriously, but 1988 was the one. Bob Payton was in charge of that. We all contributed, we were all part of that. There was, I don't know what you were doing at the time, but it was very, very open and it was a great plan.
Wasn't that Norman the Block's plan?
No, it was John Lesueur actually, and it was John Lesueur was the president. Bob was the driving force. But unfortunately, or fortunate, whichever way you want to look at it, the brilliant Harbury to Par scheme came out at the same time, and that was a brilliant scheme. It still is a great scheme, and it was never processed by the planning department, who went off and invented west of Albert, as you know. The talk then was all east of Albert, then it became west of Albert. What we got west of Albert is I do walks there every couple of years with the Architects Association, and it's one concrete building, residential, another concrete building, office, and there's no sense of space.
Well, there are
community.
huge wasted, lost opportunities for very large pieces of land around St Helier, I must say. It's a tragedy to my perception.
Yes.
I mean, I loosely use the word they're creating a ghetto, but they are creating a sort of a ghetto.
Yeah, but one of the best things that came out of the Island Plan process, I think, was the 88 one, was EPIA, which many people have forgotten about. But our practice grew up on EPIAs, and that was environmental protection and improvement areas. And our office was in Rouge-Brieuc, and we went into the whole area of Rouge-Brieuc around there. And
they have improved that area.
Yeah, it was
there
fantastic.
There were six plans, and I think they only did one of them.
Well, we did 6 or 7 housing schemes there, and we were lucky to have a bit of a dynamo as a local deputy, and that was Frank Walker, and we got Frank interested in that, and Frank sorted out the cars, the rat runs. It's now a pleasant place to live. People identified with it.
What does it need now? Because this is something I found a bit disappointing with Architecture Week. There wasn't a great movement there. It was all about prettiness awards for pretty buildings, but nobody was really getting to grips with the whole thing. Nobody was getting, like St Helier. It's a huge problem with St Helier, getting to grips with it.
No, we kind of flirted with it. With the Fort Regent issue, with how the constable sold the town, but we did agree with you. It lacked aggression, punch, vitality, enrollment. Did lack that.
You're towards the end of your career. You're not finished yet. Have you got a bit more fight left in you to take up some of these issues?
Thank you, Michael. Yes, yeah, still out there talking to people, still bringing ideas to clients and movers and shakers. Not many of them around like there used to be, but you have to be optimistic, you have to be a believer, and there's a few more surprises to come yet, I can assure you.
We should look forward to seeing those.
Okay, Michael.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Hi, where are you? I'm very close to, you know, the van, what? Can you see me? Can you see me?